Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Nailing Culture and Scaling Fast, How Kiwi.com Grew from 60 to 1,000 People. I'm really excited for today's presentation. Lucy and Vero are incredible presenters, and they're going to have a really great story to tell you. So my name is Claire Alloy. I am a part of the marketing team here at Jobvite. I'll be in the background helping out in case you have any audio issues or any questions about the webinar. You'll also be able to use that same chat box for our Q&A at the very end of the presentation. So you can see that chat box in the bottom left-hand corner. Feel free to type in any questions you have throughout the presentation, and at the very end, we'll try and cover as many as we can. So with that, actually, before I forget, the ever-present question, you will be getting a recording of the webinar to share with anyone you'd like, as well as the slides. So don't worry about taking any notes. Just sit back and listen to this incredible presentation. So I'm going to pass it over to our two presenters to tell us a little bit about themselves. Vero, you want to start?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica, and I've been with KiwiCom for over 3 years. I've been focusing on recruitment of customer support teams and any other teams that needs that. Also trying to align our processes, so that candidates have the best experience with us. And I've been in charge of the implementation of Jobvite, actually.
Okay, hi from my side as well. My name is Lucy, and thank you for having us. When it comes to my story, it's very similar. I've been with the company for about 3 years now, starting as a recruiter for customer support mainly, and lately I'm focusing to HR data and employer branding, HR marketing activities.
So just to basically briefly introduce KiwiCom, we are an online travel agency. We were founded in 2012, which is quite not a long time ago, in the Czech Republic. And we are on a mission to make travel better by connecting flights of airlines that typically don't cooperate together. The uniqueness is that we are actually able to sell the unconnected flights in one itinerary and cover it by a guarantee. By that, we have actually found a niche in the travel market, and that's our business has been growing really, really fast. And of course, we have been recruiting heavily because of this. When it comes to the ideal candidate, we thought about it, and then we came to these 4 points, these four keys, these 4 things that we found as the ones that we focused on. To be able to survive, our employees need to be really flexible and open-minded, as you never know what's next for us in the future. And you can imagine that with every new product release, new processes come, so the ability to absorb the information and work with it, but the new information, it's really a key. And as every startup, we are looking for people who are able to take the impossible and sort of turn it into possible. So to give you some numbers, KiwiCom, or what growth actually means to us. So we have grown from 60 employees in summer 2015, that's when I joined, to more than 200 in January 2016. And currently we have about 1,000 employees.
Okay, when it comes to the very beginning of our recruitment efforts, it was all but organized and planned. The company was having about 100 people at the time when I joined, and when it comes to some kind of tools or know-how, we had basically nothing and some few Google spreadsheets, so that was the start there. However, the growth was already there, and much more was expected at the time. Basically, the very first information I got was to hire 45 more people in a month and a half. So it was like, having 50 days ahead and this kind of incredible target. We really had this huge need for people and really very uncertain idea about what future might bring. It was kind of all-in situation. We were kind of playing the bank. There was basically lack of previous experience, lack of processes, tools, and enormous pace of the way we worked. Very junior people from top to bottom, definitely. The average age at the time was about 96 years. And we were in a situation where we had to create some kind of working, sustainable recruitment process with no previous data or any kind of previous experience. So to open the story, it was either do it or somehow fail. Luckily, we were lucky to have a strong idea behind what we do. We ended up with this work hard, play hard startup culture that somehow carried us through the roller coaster period and helped us define who we are. The people we were hiring at the time were the people who would be able to join us at the right people who had the passion, who had the strength, and were not afraid of taking risks to succeed. At the time, it was really extremely important to be open about all these challenges and risks during the selection procedure, because we needed the people to know that everything can turn really bad in case the company doesn't make it. Surprisingly enough, it somehow worked. We managed to find the right bunch of people that didn't care so much about corporate benefits and the fact there was chaos kind of everywhere. The people who believe that we can succeed and turn our business model into a great company, people who actually enjoy the fact that they're being interviewed in the corridor and so on. We are sure that this drive, this kind of passion, flexibility, and can-do attitude is something we really need to carry towards whatever will become in the future.
So as Lucia said, even though there was nothing in place, there was a moment when we realized we actually made it. And the growth actually won't stop. And we need to be ready for it, ready to scale up. So this was also the moment when we first realized that we have very strong personalities in the team and that everybody had their own way of doing things right. And of course, there was an enormous pushback towards any kind of uniformity. So what did we do, I guess, is the question, right? We basically tried to combine the best practices from each approach and explain that alignment doesn't mean uniformity. At this point, we believe it's good to share our key takeaways, although we have realized their importance much, much later. Ever since our recruiting was, candidate-centric or customer-centric, we always let the candidates know of their status and set up expectations. Of course, at that time, unconscious of the impact. When we started aligning the processes, we wanted to do everything our way, not the corporate way. Only lately we figured that Jobvite has provided us with framework for best practice. So, to sum up, always remember the candidate and don't try to reinvent the wheel. Track and measure everything, otherwise you won't know the impact.
So looking kind of back at our experience, here are a few basic points that worked for us and probably might be a kind of inspiration for anyone else who's currently scaling up right now. Okay, so the first one, get started ASAP. Sure, well, if you scale up, you tend to think big. You're thinking about all the offices you'll be opening around the world and how is it gonna work in other environments and so on. However, what's the risk here? Big plans really take time, so there's a lot of planning, many stakeholders, long implementation time, and so on. And when the plan is finished, the situation changes and you can start all over again. So that's probably not the way. When we decided to go for Jobvite, we were of course well aware of the fact that the implementation will take time. However, we needed to hire people immediately and really start fixing things in our recruitment process because at the time it was kind of crazy here. So what worked for us was starting with very simple updates. Having one contact for every candidate, starting sharing best practices within the team, kind of openly discussing candidate experience, best practices, and so on, and driving some basic HR and marketing activities. So I'll say that at the beginning, it's really important to take things easy and be okay with the fact that not everything will work immediately. and that not everything is going to be perfect from the very beginning. So it's really good to stay focused on what's fixable and what can be done right now, because the rest can be done later. When it comes to employer branding and HR marketing as such, there was not really that much time to drive it from within the HR. So we basically just jumped on all the ideas that came bottom up. This is our very first and, funnily enough, also the most successful recruitment video, which was made on kind of low budget with developers having fun with drones in the city. They came up with the idea themselves, actually, and our marketing team helped them with the production. It was nothing more than showcasing who they really are, a bunch of geeks that enjoy tech gadgets and are not into rules that much. And the next one was basically shot in our offices with our own employees, and also during our Christmas party. Well, sure, it's not a somehow polished, flashy marketing outcome. However, I guess it was trustful enough and transparent enough to work and get us the attention that we needed at the time. I believe Claire will be providing you with the slides later on, so feel free to check it and click through the link to see the video.
Yeah, once again, don't reinvent the wheel. So I guess one of the mistakes we made when we started with Jobvite implementation was that we basically tried to recreate all of our old processes within the new system. So even though we were discussing this with our implementation manager and had been told to limit the steps and dispositions as much as possible, it was really hard for us to imagine working without steps we created as workarounds. So if there were the possibility, for us to go back, we definitely be much more strict and careful during the planning phase. But at the same time, you learn really by making these mistakes, and that's how we learn. So
yeah. It's kind of important to fail fast and realize that this is not the way.
Yeah. So the focus, I guess, you make sure you know what is important for you, where you need to deliver the results first. Is it source tracking? Is it reducing the cost or the days to hire? That should be your primary focus, because, once you know what you need to fix first or where to focus first, the next things, they can be fixed afterwards. So you don't have to worry about them, all at the same time. Because, you will have plenty of time to fix the entire recruitment process. You can't just fix it within 1 month. That's what we tried, and, we failed. So I guess that's why we're stressing it so much. Because when you're fixing your entire process, you can actually get sidetracked onto new processes, and you're trying to be everywhere and fix everything all at once, but it's important to focus your efforts. So everything can be done all at once, and so just plan your time and project accordingly. Take into account that the first few months can be messy. Nothing will work perfectly. The team might and will struggle no matter how hard you try. And there will be mistakes. So give yourself and give the team time. And, most of all, first of all, do not give up. Giving up kind of sucks, doesn't it? Yeah. So make sure that the processes that you actually start creating, that they're scalable. Imagine, okay, they work now when you're hiring 10 people a month, but they need to be also working when you're hiring 50 people a month. So how to do that is a very good question. However, I guess our takeaway would be, use the tools that you have, whether it's your applicant tracking system or your Google spreadsheets or whatever you have. And use the tools to really help you with the recruitment. Don't use recruitment to help you with the tools. And, when there is something wrong, change it. It's painful, but we can definitely say that it's worth it.
Yeah, and of course, when it comes to changes, every minor change you do, track it, because once you start providing your C-level or your management with reports and numbers, they'll always want more, because, numbers is always really good to have. It's always easier to support your decisions by numbers. So remember that it's your team who's also feeding the data into the system. So count with this kind of human factor at the beginning of the process. You need to be sure that your data is not biased. You really need to know exactly how they work with the system and with the tool. It kind of goes as far as really when do you click on the screen button. You really need to have your whole team aligned. Otherwise, you end up with something which really cannot be measured and with numbers that won't help you at all. What I personally learned, every time you come up with a great idea how to improve the system with any kind of custom feature and everything that somehow looks really good at the beginning, give it some time. You really need to make sure that the change is sustainable and it's foolproof. So somehow try to limit possible discrepancies caused by various input formats and so on, and try to test it on some kind of small sample to be sure that it's gonna work. There was this funny moment where we kind of tried to track our costs, and we forgot that we really need to limit the input formats of the currencies and the digits that the recruiters will feed into the system. So I ended up with something that was really not useful at all at the end. Okay, so now here come some tips for the stage when the basics are there and you're scaling up. When scaling up, one of the most critical things is to sustain the company culture and the original idea of why you do what you do. With more and more people coming into the organization, these things might get a bit blurry. So what we realized is that this is not everything that your company culture comprises of is scalable. On the other hand, the very core, the reason why you do what you do and how you do that, we are going to, mission, vision, basic values, and so on, should be always scalable. And you need to differentiate the form from the content. So really focus on what's the core, and don't worry about leaving the rest to go, because sometimes you really need to do that. So stick to the content and adjust the form. Just to give you an example, we at Kiwi.com, we consider ourselves to be punk, creative, and disruptive. In the past, being punk meant maybe no processes, very limited organization and planning and so on. That's the chaos. And today, being punk means doing bold decisions, trying new things, even though we might not succeed. Of course, there will be drop-offs because the company is changing. Every month you're working for a bit different company. So I guess there is always a group of people that will be very nostalgic about good old days, and sometimes they will be blocking any progress, hardly accepting any kind of change. So all you do is really to communicate, explain, ask for their opinions, and see if there's some space for cooperation left. And then again, be very transparent about the fact some things will change for good, and they really need to be okay with that in case they want to stay with the company. Yeah. The next thing you want to do is definitely to customize your query pages and query site so it's in line with your company culture. It should give people a sneak peek into what you do and how you do that. Definitely use social media, but do not overthink what you post. Post for fun, for internal audience at the beginning. Try ideally to create some added value by sharing your internal know-how, and also think about measuring, but do not really cling on numbers and metrics. So it's really good to make sure that you're attracting diverse candidates with what they want to see. Customer support candidates want to see something totally different than engineers and so on. This usually means that you need to think about various channels and ways how to integrate them into one meaningful platform. This is basically how we ended up with two main lines of our HR marketing activities. One really strictly for developers, which is more about community, tech events, and so on, and another one for the rest of the company. These are just some snapshots of our theory site. To be frank, it's definitely not very big love to have it. However, the basic functionality is there. It integrates feeds from all our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and so on. And of course, the advanced reporting when it comes to Google Analytics helps us to see from where are our candidates coming, what's the conversion ratio based on specific channels, and so on.
With all of that said, remember your candidates. Remember your candidates throughout the process. How can they find your jobs? Are your job postings understandable, or are they just in corporate gibberish? Does it take the candidates 2 minutes to apply, or do they spend 1 hour filling in countless fields? And do you really need all that information? And what about the recruitment process? Are all the steps there really necessary? Do we really need to drag an entry-level candidate through 4 rounds of interview process, or would 1 interview and a language test be sufficient? Well, to answer all of these questions, I'd say keep it simple. And if you can't find a valid reason for a step, remove it. This is maybe just to give an example of how we have used our reports and the fact that we actually finally have them. So during the beginning of 2018, just January, February, we were facing some serious shortage in our customer support team. Due to launch of several new partners, we were in need to hire as many people as possible as soon as possible, as always, right? So at that point, it was really crucial for us to be able to leverage the process that we have had in place and see where the bottlenecks are. And, we struggled. Of course we did, but we had the numbers, and I'm just going to show them to you very in the next slide. But thanks to the rough revision, we were actually able to reduce 50 days of hire, which is kind of incredible, to 14 days at the end of the recruitment process. So here's just some simple graphs, and you can see that in January, the average time for hire for the customer service Spanish line was actually 54 days, and then it slowly dropped through April to 22, and then in June it was 14. How did it happen? Well, we looked at our bottlenecks. In that process, we actually identified 2 of them. The first one was recruitment capacities. So what it meant was that actually at the very beginning, when we opened all the positions, and especially the customer support specialist with Spanish, we got a lot of applicants, and we found out that they were staying in that they were untouched, that nobody actually got in touch with them for a very long time. And what did we do is just basically we looked at it and we added 1 more recruiter to the process. So there were actually 2 recruiters taking care of that specific hiring, and that helped, to bring the time to hire really significantly down. And the second bottleneck was language testing. So because at that point, we were doing what we used to do. So we were doing the language testing via our vendor. We were not doing it in-house, and although it sounds simple, it actually meant a lot of administration, a lot of communication towards the candidates, towards the language school, and everybody, actually in the process. So we were at a point where the average time the candidate spent in this step was actually 10 days. So what we did was actually we found out that we are able to combine the vendor with doing it in-house. So the things that we could do in-house, we did in-house. The things that we couldn't, to keep the fairness in the process, we did them outside. And that's actually the combination of 2 recruiters and doing it in-house, identifying these 2 bottlenecks actually helped us to bring down the time to hire from 54 to 14.
Yeah. When it comes, or if we stay with data, one of the biggest issues we face within our recruitment team constantly is low conversion ratio. So the team is basically flooded with irrelevant applications. They need to react to you, which results in the situation where we spend much more time with people we actually don't plan to hire than with those we want to have within the team and within the company. So looking closer at these critical conversion ratios helps us to use relevant job boards for specific roles. The fun fact here, when you compare the LinkedIn free with the standard LinkedIn, it actually works better. And LinkedIn, the standard one, I mean that's far the most expensive form of paid advertising that I have in here. So that was kind of surprising for us that we can eliminate one job board, the most expensive one, and really stick with some others. Recently there was also this kind of new idea to let all the job boards go and just really focus on active sourcing and hiring, because we might end up really with the relevant candidates only and using our time better. So if we go this way, we'll definitely let you know, because I guess it's going to be the first time we did something like that.
So finally, a few key takeaways. So one thing that our employees love about KiwiCom, and we do as well, is how flexible the environment is. So it's a matter of finding, really the balance in the process, and that's talking about us. So for us, it was really the matter of finding balance in the process, and balance and flexibility and creativity. So to say this in simple words, the tools are here for you to help you, and not for you to help them. Really just bear that in mind. They're meant to help you. So yeah. And the thing for us when it comes to reports, it's really never too early to start measuring. So start with the basics and what you at that time find important. Take baby steps. We started with sources. That was the first thing that we focused on. And then it was the bottlenecks. And, now we will focus more onto, actually predicting with the data that we have. So start with baby steps. And yeah, for us, everything is still a work in progress, and you're never done. So constant revision is needed really to make sure that you're on the right path. So once you create a process and it works, you start measure it, and then it's again a good time and perfect time to actually reevaluate and revisit. To see if what you have actually matches your current state and your future needs. When it comes to us and our future plans, I think we managed to leverage the external hiring process and the hiring managers' experience quite well. Of course, there's always space for improvement, right? But where we really identified the place to focus on is, or where we see a depth, is our internal hiring and our internal candidates, our employees. So where we really need to reach a better alignment across teams and across recruiters, and start measuring actually how happy our employees are with what we do. And yeah, I guess, KiwiCom will grow and will be growing, so we might be opening some offices around the world quite soon, and so we'll need to think of adjusting what we have here in one space, in one office, and how can we actually transition this to somewhere else, even including our HR marketing activities. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, and I guess it's question time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That was fantastic, guys. I know There are some nerves at the beginning, but you did fantastic, just as I predicted. And we do have some questions for you, so let me get started. We've got a good amount of time. We'll probably take about 15 minutes for questions, just so we don't exhaust everyone. And I'm going to start off first with a question from Mark. So he asked, do you use psychometric profiling at any point in the hiring process?
Okay, I'll take this one. To say it simply, I'd say no. And that's actually what Lucy mentioned at the beginning. It comes from there, because at the very beginning, everybody was really inexperienced in here from bottom to top. And we had to use our intuition and what we knew, and that's how we actually figured that it works. So that's what we keep doing. So how we, just to make it simple, we hire our candidates and we ask the questions, in the way that how I would like to be treated by a recruiter if I was applying somewhere else. Yeah.
Perfect. So we have two questions that I think, well, I'll ask them separately. So we have one from Teresa, and she asks, what type of culture do you guys have regarding decision making? Has that ever been a bottleneck in itself, recreating efficiencies and changes?
It depends. It depends on the team, because of course when we are talking about the HR team or the recruitment team, we learned really how to do an informed decision, and there is a clear, way and responsibility set up to do a decision that's based on numbers and some kind of previous experience and so on. What's still a bit of trouble, I'd say, is the alignment with the hiring managers and probably with the management sometimes. Because when it comes, for example, for the communication between C-level and the middle-level management, sometimes they really do not agree what's the right way to go. So then there is a lot of facilitation and so on to really be able to do a decision that's not just an uninformed guess, but really an informed decision based on some kind of data and previous experience.
Yeah, and I think that might be an answer to the next question, but I'll ask it just in case you have more to add. But a question from Laura was, did you have C-level buy-in from the beginning of your scaling process? And if not, how did you get them on board?
To answer simply, I'd say yes, we did. Because and how we got them on board, not even knowing that we were doing it, is that they saw that we actually managed to hire the right people in the right time. So that they had their members of the team that they needed, and that KiwiCom was actually able to grow. So, yeah.
And really at the time, having those people was the crucial thing to somehow proceed further. So the attitude I saw at the beginning was basically just tell me what to do. I need you to hire the people. I'll do whatever you want me to do. So there was this kind of desperate situation. So that got us the buy-in, I guess.
Yeah.
Nothing like desperation to get you some buy-in. Okay.
Yeah.
So starting at the very beginning, a question from Anastasia was, may I ask you about how many people were in charge of recruiting when Kiwi.com started at 60 employees?
All right. I guess when there were 60 employees, that's when I joined, and there was no recruiter, there was no HR at that point. I actually got hired by who then was a colleague of mine. It was not even a team manager, so that kind of punk. Then the decision was made that maybe somebody who understands HR was hired, and that was only in November when we were 3. So it was Lucy, me, and Gabi. So yeah, so it was 3 of us. And who was in charge? It's hard to answer because each of us had our own priorities. Lucy was hiring customer-facing teams. I was focusing on back office. Gabi was focusing on both of these and also on IT and other roles that were needed at that time. So I guess each of us had our own role and requisition, and we were focusing on that. So we were, each of us, in charge of what we were doing.
Got it. We have a question from Shannon. How do you recruit candidates? Do you post a job and only work with those who actively apply, or do you go after passive candidates?
Again, depends on the position and the role. For example, when it comes to entry-level and junior positions, we are still in a situation, or I guess so, that we are kind of company which is, I don't know, let's say the employer brand within the Czech Republic is really strong. So when it comes to entry-level position, it's kind of easy for us to attract the candidates. So there is quite a lot of them. Of course, not all of them being relevant. But when it comes to senior roles, and also, facing the fact that we're still based in Czech Republic, and sometimes we're really sourcing candidates that have, previous years of experience with an online global travel and so on. We of course need to source actively as well. So it's the standard sourcing, LinkedIn, using all the efforts that we have, taking in all the hiring managers and C-level, going through their contacts, sometimes using agencies as well. So we combine both.
Great. So we have a question from, and I apologize, I will probably butcher this name, Theresa. But she asks, thank you for your story. I wonder if you're using the tools and measuring what you do already, is one of your biggest bottlenecks just how many recruiters you have? She's on her own right now, and she's also managing people operations and strategy. And I know for you guys at Kiwi.com, you have a team. So maybe if you have any tips for her about, or now I'm realizing him, I don't actually know, I apologize once again. If you have any tips on how you work as a lean recruiting team, whether you're a team of one or just very small.
I guess the only advice that's here is that you really need to take on board some other people that you already have within the company. So I would basically communicate to the rest that those hiring efforts, that's something that everyone should do, because otherwise you won't be able to succeed. So it's probably either having a bigger team, a recruitment team, or really taking on board hiring managers and some other employees, building some kind of sustainable referral system to get more relevant applications and really motivating employees to work for your brand.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Lucy really nailed what I wanted to say, so yeah. And that's what we did at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's great. We still have, you guys are a very active audience, but we still have some time for questions. So if you're thinking about submitting one and wondering if we have any time, send them in. We've got a couple more, and then depending on if we get any more, we'll either close out or we'll keep on talking. You two presenters are very quick in your answers, so it's really wonderful that we're getting through so many. We have a question from Julianne, and she asks, have you ever interviewed a candidate and found that they were rude or disrespectful? And if so, how did you handle it? That recently happened to her, and she politely just said she would let him know if we wanted to move forward. But there was a part of me that wanted to be professionally candid and tell him his behavior was unacceptable. What do you think?
Okay. This is a hard one. So I think every recruiter has experienced something like this. And I'd say, there is no universal good reaction to that. Of course, it depends how well do you handle this kind of situations. In case you feel strong enough to really communicate about what's wrong with the candidate's behavior, I would probably, transparently go into that. On the other hand, of course, you don't want to create a public enemy. So that's also another thing that you should consider somehow, really looking on the candidate's personality and trying to guess what the reaction might be.
Okay. Oh, goodness. I apologize again for the pronunciation. Jochem, maybe? Jochem has a question. And I think it is perfect for Lucy to answer because it's on data and reporting, but feel free to chime in either way. So what are the challenges regarding creating insights on data or managing and analyzing channels for recruiting? Lucy, are you still on the line? Did you guys go on mute? People in the audience, can you guys still hear me? Can you chat? And just make sure it's not mine. Okay. Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Julianne. Okay. Well, darn it. I'm glad you guys got to hear the rest of the presentation. And we do have a couple more questions, so I will make sure that that Lucy and Veronica both reach out. And Lucy, can we hear you? She said that she dialed back in. Okay. It looks like we're having audio difficulties, but thankfully it happened at the end of the presentation. So like I was saying, we will make sure if you asked a question and it wasn't answered, it'll be passed over. And so we can hopefully answer some of your questions either on our blog or anything else. Once again, I wanted to say a huge thank you to both of our presenters. They were pretty incredible. I hope you all agree. And you will get an email with the presentation slides and the recording with those will all be emailed to you this time tomorrow. We're in the Jobvite, we're in the Pacific time zone, so it'll be around 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. They'll be in your inbox. So thank you very much. Once again, thank you to Lucy and Veronica. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.